Quorum. Yep. Okay. I'm going to open up the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting of April 2nd, 2024. Let's dive right in. We've got a handful of things to get through tonight. So Sarah may be late. So up until Sarah's arrival, I'm going to run the show. Andrew, I'll still ask you to take roll call votes and so on. First, let's take on the minutes of March 19th, 2024. Are there any comments, additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes?
It occurred to me, I wasn't 100% sure that Tim had sent those around. Did you get those? Okay.
Yeah, he sent them, I think the same, Thursday?
Something it was after everything else, but yeah.
It wasn't too far after you sent everything.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no additions or corrections to those, could we get a motion to approve those minutes, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve the March 9th, 2024 meeting minutes as printed.
I'll second that. Motion's been made and seconded. Andrew, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Carl.
Aye.
Chase.
Chase Garbig, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Very good. Okay, Amy, you want to take us through the administrative discussion, and maybe Tim, you might be up to bat first here.
Yep, Tim's first up, and maybe that's all we'll get to, but I figure I'd put him on first.
Cool.
All right. I don't want to take up too much time tonight. Amy and I did a walk at the beach, and there's a couple things that we would like to have completed down there, and want it to come to you all because obviously we're inside some of our buffer zones doing some of the stuff that we're looking to do. But just wanted to have a few discussions around three things. One being the walking path that we have down there. Number two being the proposal of the fishing dock. We did do a sample dock during the COVID period. That would be to replace the docks that had fallen into disrepair, that one of them was removed. The other one is still kind of there, collapsed in the lake. And the third being, we were going to consolidate our townwide cleanup. Unfortunately, in the past few years, it hasn't been very successful. And we wanted to partner with the Long Lake Neighborhood Association to have more of an impact around the lake area, specifically what is lovingly referred to as the frog pond. So not sure if I can share my screen. Let me pull this up right here.
Should be able to, Tim.
Yep. So what we're looking to do is, number one, this is our walking path that we have here. You can see it circle in the yellow box. So currently we have a temporary walking path. I'm going to flip back and forth a couple times, which is this blue mat that runs from the parking lot all the way down to Lakeshore Drive. The first picture you see is from the beach parking lot. The second picture is where it interfaces with the little walkway that comes up from the conservation parcel off of Lakeshore. In the third picture, this is as it sits today. That's the little piece that we're trying to butt up to. And then the fourth picture is just where that goes onto the beach without the mats present. So right now, just so you guys have an idea, the measured distance between where the high water mark is, which is currently to where the front of the mat is approximately 62 feet on average. The closest that we get is about 27 feet, and that's over in the area where the conservation part meets the beach, where that kind of rounded area is, right over here. If you can see in the third picture, that's kind of where the closest part is. Just kind of give you a historical part of this. We had a bunch of interest when we first started with access to be able to get from Lakeshore over to the parking lot. This was the solution that we were able to come up with after we talked to DCR and some of our partners. Over the past couple of years, we have had some controversy as far as how the mats look, the colors, things like that. And we also just most recently had some residents come over and speak at the Park Commission meeting last month as to how they can't cross the beach during the winter time right now, and could we come up with a more permanent solution. So what we're looking to do here is to utilize the materials just as what were put in before and extend this and actually make this a hard path. The other thing that we've been encountering a lot lately is because of the rains that we've been having a lot of flooding area, wash off and runoff in the middle of the beach, which hopefully by putting in a hard structure would help us to mitigate some of the runoff that we've been experiencing, as well as fixing the berm behind the playground. So that is kind of that part of the ask. The park, we are going to take this before the park commission again. We currently are out getting 3 quotes in order to do the work. And if we could get a permit from the Conservation Commission, we would hope to start the work as soon as we got the quotes and the money's approved.
So, Tim, help me understand what you're asking for. Are you just taking our temperature right now as to our sort of willingness to go forward on this? I guess I'm not clear what the ask is.
Yeah, and I'll jump in because Tim and I went back and forth, and that's exactly right. And I also, some of these are kind of on the border of whether you might want to see a notice of intent or an RDA. So I just kind of wanted to try to clear that up too. I was tending to think this trail's leaning towards a notice of intent with the new pavers across the beach, but a big part of it also is kind of maintenance of the existing piece of it.
The other piece, just if we were to go and put the hardscape in all the way across, we would address the ADA issue, because currently the path that exists on the conservation piece is actually out of compliance for when it was put in. So we would kind of regrade everything back towards the road and make that into the proper specs.
Okay, so let's take the ADA trail first, and then maybe we can talk about the fishing dock and stormwater area.
Yep.
Comments from the commission on your opinions regarding an RDA versus a notice of intent? It's a quiet crowd. Okay, I'm going to jump in and say, Amy, I think from my perspective, your instinct was right. Not that this needs to be a big deal, but I would like to, I think, paper it formally, particularly given its proximity to the beach in the conservation piece, right? We're a little touchier the closer you get. So to Tim, in my opinion, I don't think it's a big deal. I just think we need to go the more formalized route.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually just sent a letter out ourselves about the different upcoming things that we've been doing. We also spoke at the Long Lake Neighborhood Association meeting 2 weeks ago. So absolutely, I 100% agree. And that's part of the reason we wanted to get here, was just to make sure we could do this the right way and get all of the public input that we needed to, but also get it out there and get it completed, hopefully before the summer hits us.
That said, I mean, that's my opinion. I'm open to a straw poll. If everybody else thinks we can just do an RDA, I'm happy to lose. It's fine.
What are you doing about the sand? You said the sand was washing off into the lake. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so just recently, especially last summer, we had a pretty significant amount of runoff. We had to pull the mat up a couple times and put some more sand down. So, as part of what we've discussed is putting, some 3/4 underneath the new path, creating some better drainage that's not going to wash the sand out, but allow the water better movement. And we've also looked at what we can do with the swale behind the playground in order to reroute some of that water around the back. That's not, making it into the design swale that was put in whenever it was done.
Okay.
Well, Tim, I'm going to read the silence from the rest of my commissioners as a concurrence that a notice of intent is probably what we should do here.
All right.
You want to pick up the other pieces, the fishing dock and the cleanup elements?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So moving on, the next piece is the Lakeshore fishing dock. So in the third picture over here, you can kind of see this wooden structure. There used to be 2 of them. One of them used to exist in the middle picture, which is closest to kind of the walkway right in front of this bench. We removed it a couple years ago during the community cleanup because it was really kind of more of a safety hazard, like the other one has turned into, missing boards, nails, things like that. During the COVID period and just kind of social distancing, we had put a sailing dock that we had replaced in this area, just kind of as a temporary structure to take in place of the one that we had taken out. And what we're looking to do is we've had some donations from the residents around the lake to put in a structure. We've had this conversation with Amy before. What we would be looking to do would, if you're familiar with it, we have the can dock, which is the plastic structures that go in with the pylons, and it's got a gangplank that goes from grade out to the dock blocks. It's a removable structure. It would be something that we would look to take in and out seasonally, just like we do with the sailing dock and the dock that goes down the middle of the beach. But this would provide opportunity for the kids to get out past the cattails, past the trees right there, keep the fishing line out, all that stuff. We have also looked into the ability for us to put the nice thing about the dock is we can put a bench out there if we want it to. It anchors right onto the docks, so people can go out there and kind of view the lake. People of all ages enjoy it a little better, get to see it, especially when the stuff has grown up. So we did get approval last night for our capital request, and as part of our capital request for some of the dock, this is where we were hoping to utilize some of that structure.
This sounds very similar to one we did over in Fort Pond Road there, except that his was an aluminum dock, but other than that, it seems very similar.
So, Amy, what's the nature of the question here that we might need to weigh in before an application?
I think this is probably as much a heads up. I'm kind of thinking this is a notice of intent just to get on paper, and then you can just continue it for a long period of time. And there's been over many years several reconfigurations of all the whatever swim docks there may or may not be. So if there's any other docks, we can just fold them into that same one and get them all.
I guess you're thinking kind of what I was thinking here, which is to the extent that we can put as many things into a single filing as possible, that may. Let's say we should think about how we organize the filings and what's lumped in there for future purposes.
Yes, and so that's up to Tim what the timing looks like, if he can get everything ready or if he's going to have to split them up. He's gotten approval. I don't know if you've had it yet for this year, but in the past to put in the docks because they're sort of the harbor master. So it's time to kind of pull it all back in again and introduce Tim to the other 2 or 3 levels of permitting.
Didn't you say last night you got approval for the dock? From
just for the purchase of the new pieces. This has been something that has been on our radar for about 5 years now. We've talked about, do we replace the fishing dock? How do we get that out there? As soon as we put the sailing dock out there and the wooden docks were no longer off lakeshore, we kind of adopted all the fishermen out on that dock, which causes its own problems, getting tangled up on the sailboats and stuff. So, like I said, during COVID, we had gotten approval from Conservation Commission to put a dock. We were asked by the Conservation Commission to put the dock over off the lakeshore that we had as extra. And, this is just something in response to that. After we pulled it out, we had a couple of donations come in from some residents because they were, happy that it was there and sad that it was now gone. So we've just been kind of chasing this for a little while.
Okay. So with that one, Tim, it sounds like, to the extent that you and Amy want to strategize about whether it's one filing or multiple filings, or if other things need to be put in the filing to sort of cover, maybe what you might be doing a year or 2 from now. I think what you're hearing from the commission is general openness to whatever regulatory structure you want.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Chase. I mean, the one notice of intent is good for 3 years, right? Or even if you need to get an extension for some reason. I don't see why all of this wouldn't get lumped into one, even though there's separate pieces. They're not all the same general idea. It's the same same owner, same property. We would do that with a normal property owner, right? I would say make this as easy as possible for them, as much as it is for us.
Oh, and for that matter, the public that wants to weigh in too, right? They don't want to come to 6 meetings
Yeah.
if they can only
Right.
come to one.
So just to be clear, Kyle, this is actually your parcel of land that this would be coming off of.
Right.
This is the piece right off the lake shore right there where the parking spaces are.
Right. So having said that, does any sort of maintenance or what?
Or liability.
So how is it that you're looking to procure it and asking, are you also asking just permission to put it on our parcel of property? I guess.
Yeah, so that was kind of the ask that we had a couple years ago, and we did it, and
Yeah, I
that
remember
dock
that.
just became out of disrepair, so we got rid of it. And since then, we were asked to come up with a solution to kind of make it happen. So, yeah, it would essentially be we would do exactly what we do with our seasonal docks, but I just wanted to clarify that it would be access off of the conservation parcel.
Does that throw anything weird into it at all, Chase or Amy? I mean,
We can wrap it into a land use permit
yeah.
also, just to cover all the bases.
And there's no liability concern since we're all town of Littleton.
Yeah,
All
the
rolls upstairs. Yeah.
The insurance would follow it. Yep.
Frog Pond.
All right, Frog Pond. So last but not least, one of the desires that was greatly expressed at our Long Lake Neighborhood Association meeting was how do we continue the community cleanup in a better way? One of the things that kind of occurred was, we were spending $1,000 for a dumpster, didn't really have a lot of involvement town-wide. How can we kind of put that into a smaller scope that impacts something that has a large group of people who really want to improve something? So, the Frog Pond was brought up as a project for this year. Kind of the beach area, the Long Lake Neighborhoods Association at their meeting had expressed that it was something that, they were kind of passionate about. We do have somebody named Robert who, really focuses on the knotweed. I think they actually are using the parcel adjacent to it for the knotweed to dry everything out this year. And the garlic mustard, I'm sorry. However, the Frog Pond has been around for a while. Last year, the highway department, we redid the rain garden and the swale that's adjacent to the boat ramp that was all overgrown. And, we had it dredged out so that we could have that back into the effective way that it's supposed to work. Obviously, this is another piece of the state project that was completed. There was never any maintenance or upkeep done to it. To my understanding, there is some dredging that eventually has to be done. But one of the things that we run into as I switch to the next slide is, it's really just become overgrown. It's become a place where kids go back and they throw the bricks into the pond. There's pallets and lumber that people have dropped because the water has started to run over and the path has begun to sink. Really what we're looking for is, Amy and I walked this property, and I think we were kind of both in agreement that we just need kind of like a 1-day hard reset. A lot of the invasives that are in there have just taken over, and it's really just hard to get to them and maintain it to a level of being able to really do anything back there. We were hoping to get a big group of volunteers and, pressure wash and blow the pavers. And eventually, if we did do the paver project, get the same landscaper in there to, either, maybe put some drainage underneath the pavers and raise them back up. That's not a April 20th plan, but hopefully down the future, if we got things cleaned up, we discussed that this might be a good place in the future, that because there is a walking trail, to maybe put some nature signage in, to maybe put a sign in from Light and Water explaining what the actual purpose of it is and how it helps with the lake, just to kind of share some of that knowledge of what's actually happening in this zone. But ultimately, if you haven't walked in a while, it is something that, the town, the state spent money to install. It hasn't been upkept very well at all. And it's just something needs to be done. It's kind of a real big eyesore and a place for, people to go back and just kind of do things sometimes that they shouldn't be doing.
So we do have a comment from someone. Mr. Rounce, I'll give you a chance to comment in a moment once the commission has had a chance to weigh in.
And I will say this one, you'll notice that this is set for April 20th. I mean, I tend to see this as routine, if not a little bit deep maintenance to fix up those pavers and get out the invasive species. I will also say that the frog pond, even though it is a created stormwater wetland, is a flow through, so it is a resource area also. So they'll be working right up into it. And mostly I will not be here on the 20th. So if we wanted, although Rob and Tess certainly know their invasive species, if you wanted someone there to help decide, we're going to lose some native plants and some of the large tangles in there, but they're going to come back and it'll be easier at that point to keep the invasives out. So it might be hopefully a sort of startling piece of work as a clean up the overgrown vegetation in there. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware and or if you want to do a site walk, especially on this little piece of it.
I mean, I see this very much as a maintenance activity that doesn't need to be permitted. And I think it's hard to overstate the importance of the frog pond to the water quality in the lake in general. So
I agree. And Amy, the property that's behind that, right? We permitted a new home there, right? Septic, and they had a plan to do some significant work back there. And so you're shaking your head that they have not done it?
They put in their wall and the erosion controls are still out there. And they've stopped dead. So I don't know if he's walked away from the site or what's going on, but no planting has happened.
Okay, because yeah, we went back and forth a lot, and they had agreed to do, not go and take out invasives across the entire area, but in that area where that path is now flooded, and there was a significant plan to do some cleanup and planting. So, just before Tim goes too far, if they're purchasing stuff for, I guess you're not planting as much as removing, but
especially in that one particular area, that could be the lowest priority, depending on how the 20th goes.
Yep.
Okay. Let's pause for a second. Mr. Rounce, you want to express your comment?
Yes. So Rob Rounce, 25 Jennifer Road. A couple things. One, I'm working under Tim Pearson rather, off the senior work tax program. I did work with the knotweed, as Tim mentioned, on Beach Drive. I'm now identified the Frog Pond area, happy to participate on the April 20th as well. Having said that, I appreciate the comment, Chase, that you made with regard to the importance of the water basin. I've been engaging Steve Yonley from DPW for about 15 months. When I saw this agenda item, I thought it might be more pertaining to the water basin as opposed to the April 20th event. So I just want to ask how conservation can get involved. Steve responded recently, I'll say the last 4 to 6 weeks, indicating that he identified many months ago that DPW had responsibility to dredge it. He got into sequencing upon my questioning, stating that the pathway can't be repaired, that water area is a problem. Yes, it needs to be redone, et cetera. It could be cleaned up, temporarily, et cetera, but that wouldn't address the water issue. And he said, no, it's going to get destroyed. If something new were done, it would get destroyed in their dredging, which he views as his responsibility. I'm more looking my comment to conservation is, what can you do to kind of advocate or encourage Steve Yonley, DPW, to get on with the task? Because I think it is something that Clean Lakes Committee was wanting done. I think there was a engineering study done in 2022 with regard to sizing up how much material volume was going to have to be removed from there. But then it got taken away from Clean Lakes Committee, got put to DPW, and it's kind of sat there. And I'm concerned with regard to it sitting there, and hoping that conservation can play a role in advocating and getting on, because there are challenges with regard to Long Lake waters and cleanliness, and this is an important component of keeping Long Lake clean. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Let me take that first, Mr. Rounds. I think it is appropriately homed with Steve leading it to the extent that he needs support from conservation. I mean, Amy probably talks to Steve once a week, once every 2 weeks, kind of thing on various issues. So my guess is it's less an issue of identified significance and more an issue of identified funding. And that's just a guess. I don't know. We can certainly check. Amy gives us a thumbs up here. So my 2 cents here is that whatever we do, and I know you weren't specifically commenting on this, but whatever we do in the short term to, let's say, improve the walkway, yes, that could eventually get destroyed. But the run up to even relatively small projects like this can be fairly long. So I don't think I'm not worried about, I guess, the potential implications of doing some work that ultimately gets destroyed. We can check in with Steve and sort of let him know that this is something we're also generally think is important. But I'm not sure Steve needs a big kick in the butt there. Any other, Mr. Rounds, I'll give you a chance, one quick chance to follow up once I hear.
I'm not trying to do a kick in the butt so much as how does it get done, a visibility issue, etc. And seeing it again on your agenda was why I spoke up. So thank you again for letting me comment.
Appreciate it.
So what I'd like to check is, I don't know if anyone on the commission would even be around on the 20th, and would be willing to not oversee, but kind of stop by and see what's going on out there. Or have a site walk ahead of time to kind of think it through a little bit more. But that was actually one of the biggest reasons I wanted Tim to come in, was to discuss that piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's possible, on my end, I would prefer it if we could do a site walk sometime ahead of time. Even if there's questions on the other things that we addressed tonight, but mainly to say, okay, yeah, we're okay with going to this level of clearing, and what can we actually accomplish on that day. I think if we got there on the 20th and made the decision on that day, what level of clearing that we were going to do and cleaning up and what we were going to do, I think we'd probably spend more time addressing what we were going to do than actually getting stuff done.
I won't be around on the 20th. Is there a commissioner who might be available to either, let's say, run point on this for us?
I won't be around on the 20th, but I'd be happy to walk down maybe a day before. I think, Tim, I would agree that perhaps the meeting before would be more productive than going out there on the 20th and discussing it then.
Maybe someday next week, so we have a little head up.
I missed the timing on that, Tim. What was the timing? I know it's on the 20th. Was there a time set to be out there all day?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 8. So we're gonna do the just in general neighborhood cleanup from 8 to noon. We were specifically hoping, and I agree with Amy, if we could kind of walk in the next week or two, weather depending. That way we can say, okay, we can get X number of volunteers. A couple of the members had mentioned, getting some of the student volunteers, things like that. But having a group of people who are specifically tasked at X, Y, and Z on that day, so that we could have the proper tools, all of that kind of stuff ready to go and actually make the impact that we're looking to have that day.
Might be around for the first half of that day, but we do have other commitments the rest of it. Actually, now that I say that, I think soccer starts, so I take that back. Sports start.
Oh, there he goes.
There goes my Saturday. Sorry.
Well, do you want to try to do something like after work on the 9th or 10th, Tuesday or Wednesday? Weather permitting?
I could do that Wednesday, the 9th. We've got an election in Harvard, so it might be a little tricky.
How about Wednesday the 10th or Tuesday the 9th?
The 10th would work.
You should be able to make that work.
What time are you looking at?
When can you get there, Andrew? Is it like 5:15 or something?
I should be able to pull off 5:15. Yeah.
Want to say 5:15 Wednesday the 10th?
I can try and make it.
All right, that'd be great. And that way, if we have another snowstorm, we have time to reschedule.
It'll be 6. It's supposed to be 66. We should be great.
It'll be really wet. Okay. I'll send around a email on that too.
All right. Thank you for your time, everybody. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. I will send Amy the slide deck that I sent over just in case anybody wants to kind of review any of the pictures or send any kind of questions, but I will see you next week. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tim.
Very good.
And
Okay.
I think Rob still has his hand up. I'm not sure if that's. Are we going to moving on? Oh, there it goes. Okay, you're set.
Okay. That took a little longer than expected. Good. Good. I think it was worth doing, but let's bypass everything else and jump into our 7:45 p.m. discussion of 49 Manawanaki sand placement. Mr. Mr. and Mrs. Barr, before you guys jump in, Amy, could you give us an update? I know Tim went out there to potentially take a look at it. I'm just curious what you and Tim had before we open the floor to discussion.
Yeah, Tim and I went out there. I can't remember when it was, and it hasn't really changed. They continue to work on the walls, and then Sarah went out, I think maybe the next day or something, and just asked that some erosion controls be left in place because of how the work's going. So I mean, at this point, there's really not much to see. I think Dave might have more information on how much sand was there and just reconfirm again that this was smoothing from construction, not beach nourishment type sand placement.
Okay. And can you frame the question for us that we need to decide upon before we get into the rest of the discussion?
I guess, do you see anything here that was a violation that would require, for example, removal of the sand, or if this is just kind of typical construction inside uphill of the erosion controls?
Okay. Very good. Mr. Barr, you want to give us an update on quantity of sand and so on?
So it's a little hard to remember because it was, I don't know, 15 months ago, but I think it was probably like a couple cubic yards of sand. I don't know, 2 or 3 maybe, along the wall where the soil had been dug out to put in a footing for the wall, and had gotten mixed. The dirt got mixed with the sand, and that all got removed. And then we brought fresh sand in to fill that in and replace it and restore the beach to what it had been before. Amy and Tim came out a week ago. Sarah came out the next day on Wednesday. Just to clarify, so we had there's a silt fence along the beach in one corner of the beach because there was a little bit of work being done in that corner on the wall recently, and then I left it there when I knew that people were going to be coming. In the week that it took, before people came, the water came up about a foot, and now the silt fence was out in the water, sort of stranded in the water. But I left it there so people could see what was there. I told Amy that we were going to take it out then, now that they'd seen it, because it wasn't needed anymore and it wasn't useful being out there in the water. And Tim's understanding and talking to Sarah the next day was that Sarah asked us to leave that there. That wasn't what she had requested. She looked up at the Amy. It was the area up above our riprap shoreline, and there were 4 things that she asked us to do there. Kind of dig in one section so that it was nothing would come through, kind of dig some dirt back from it, replace a wattle, extend the silt fence up in one direction by a few feet. And we did all those the next day.
Just to be clear, though, that Sarah's comments and Tim and Amy's as well were in the context of the already permitted wall reconstruction, right? In our capacity as
Right.
overseeing. Okay.
Yeah, these were erosion controls in place for the construction that has already been approved and has been underway. Yeah, they were just asking for some of those controls to be kind of tightened up a bit.
Okay. Very good. So sounds like we've got sort of two choices in front of us as a commission. I suppose it's possible we could want to gather additional information, or we could make a decision tonight. If we decide we have enough information to make a decision, then the question is whether or not we need to issue a notice of violation, or I'm sorry, an enforcement order, or whether or not, or we think it was part of we agree that it was part of the approved activities. So first, let's start with the first question. Does anyone need additional information to make a decision here?
I don't think we are able to get that information. This is what I'm getting
yeah, need information that is obtainable. Yes. Okay. Hearing no opposition, then it sounds like folks think we have enough info. Now the question is whether or not it's an enforcement order or it's the opinion of the commission that this was in the completion of the already approved work. What's the pleasure of the board there?
Can I throw out a third one that I
Sure.
still have no idea what I'm hesitant to say either one of those, honestly. I really don't, because going back to looking for information or lack of evidence on either side of it, I don't, I guess my point is I don't see how we can send an enforcement order out. I don't see there any proof of there being a violation. Having said that, I don't see any. I guess it's the lack of proof the other way, right? We don't know that it was just used to replace what was there.
Okay. So what you're saying is we wouldn't affirmatively say it was part of the approved work, but we don't have any evidence that there was a violation.
Yeah, that was a much better way of putting it.
Okay.
Stumbling over that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would like to think that this was more of returning it back to its original condition. Like that's, I guess, where I'm at with this.
It doesn't sound like there's an audit trail, if you will, started the work, broke the rule, fixed the rule, continued working or any of that. I mean, there's a lot of discussion. Some people went out and see it, but it would be a whole lot easier if there was an actual track of, this is what it is now. This is what it is at various points. I think I'm with Kyle. That I'm not hearing any evidence that they did it as part of the project, nor am I hearing that they didn't.
So sounds like that's 2 votes as we've investigated and we've chosen to let sleeping dogs lie. Andrew, Carl?
Yeah, I'm going to be in agreement with.
I would agree as well.
Okay. Very good. Then I think let's leave it this way then. Mr. and Mrs. Barr, you've heard our opinion. It doesn't sound like we're going to pursue an enforcement order here. That said, I do want to make sure it's clear, right? Like beach nourishment activities, things like that. Just give Amy a call. Let's talk through things before we do things like that in the future.
Okay, it's something that might be considered beach nourishment.
I would say if there are any questions, any ambiguities, any little like hint in the back of your mind, just give Amy or Tim a call.
Okay.
You have a truck backing up with sand, that's beach nourishment.
Yeah.
That's Phil.
Yes. Amy, any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Barr.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to the 8 p.m. public hearing, notice of intent, Cloverdale ADA Trail. No Mass DEP. Do we have a Mass DEP number on this yet, Amy?
We do not.
No, we do not. Okay. Construction of a gravel ADA trail and modifications to the boardwalk. Are you speaking to this?
That's me. I went to look for somebody to elevate. Oh, that's mine.
I made the same mistake.
Oh no.
You're gonna elevate yourself.
Well, you know, whatever it takes. Let's. All right, let me try one more time here. Get this open. There it is. All right, I don't know why I'm having a hard time sharing this. Let me try one more time. Can you see the aerial photograph?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. I can't see all the screens at once. So this is, as I think you've probably aware, an ADA trail that we got the DCR Mass Trails grant for. So sort of three components to this. This blue arrow is about a 300-foot compacted gravel ADA trail from the parking lot down to the existing boardwalk, which in and of itself is ADA compliant. Excuse me, and DPW would construct this, and Green has done the engineering and the stormwater for it. It won't be quite as straight as is shown here. And Catato has actually offered to donate and install the erosion controls for this. Then this will meet up. There's the boardwalk. There's a little section right here, then an upland hump, and then the main part of the boardwalk. And this part right in here is not ADA compliant. So we're going to have DPW just pull out a little bit of this hump, which they actually did before, but not quite as much, so that we can complete the boardwalk trail here at a level spot. And at the same time, over excavate a little bit to do a little more wetland creation, which we had done for the original boardwalk in this general area. And then down at this end, what we call a turnaround or bump out, sort of an 8x8 platform on the side, so that if someone is out there and either wants to take a break, there'll be a bench, or if it's a wheelchair, they can turn around because they're not going to be able to go further. So they have a nice place to sit there and look back over. So that's kind of generally where the bump out is going to be, and that's the view that they would have from the sitting area. And this is the little area in here that needs to be knocked down so that this piece of boardwalk can be connected to this piece of boardwalk straight through. This is just a piece of fireboard or something right now. And this is a view from the parking lot where the ADE trail would run down through there. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Where is the gravel section?
The gravel section would be from the parking lot down past the pollinator garden.
Yeah.
And to the beginning of the boardwalk.
Oh, okay.
So it would be that stretch there. And again, it'll have a little bit of a weave to it because there's two big boulders in there that they got to get around. But that's the general location. And I just realized that the plan that Green came up with, the existing conditions plan, looks like that. It did not copy well.
I would like to remind the conservation agent that we have very specific line colors and types for wetlands.
Well, look, here are the colors.
Oh, there we go.
They made it on the wall pages.
I flagged the wetlands, and they were surveyed. And so here is the 50-foot buffer zone. Here's 100-foot, and then the parking lot's just off the screen right now. And I did include a waiver also, basically relying on the fact that this has a very big public purpose for getting the ADA and getting people down on that boardwalk. And I'm pretty sure Aggregate's going to donate the gravel, but they're working through the powers that be. for that.
I have no comments on the application. The only thing I might mention, I know you may have already checked in with the Disability Commission on this once or twice, but maybe just checking in with Diane Crory for a minute to make sure that
Yeah.
Diane, as the chair of the Disability Commission, is just generally informed of what's going on.
Yeah, I talked to them initially about a couple options of where to do this ADA trail, and they agreed this was probably the best place for it. But yeah, no, it's a good idea to circle back with them again with the plans.
Any other comments on this? We can't take any action because we don't have a DEP file number, but
Nothing with that.
Mhm.
Amy's given up on us apparently. Now we're really in trouble if I have to run this meeting. Give her a second to come back here. Let me text her real quick.
Am I reading the agenda properly? There's 2 entries for Cloverdale.
There is, yeah. So there's the ADA trail, and then there's as a notice of intent, and then there's an RDA for the boardwalk.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
So I assume continue the notice of intent for the ADA trail to the next meeting.
Yeah, but I would only set aside a couple minutes for it in the event that there's a public comment.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of surprised that I was expecting some people to be here for that. I guess I don't know. It seems like you've had some issues there at that site with pushback on anything we've wanted to do on that property. So
Yeah, well,
you
we
guys should be notified. You have to do notifications and everything, right? So
all the green cards have come out and come back, so everyone's been notified. And we actually also had some postings on the kiosk as well for these, as well as the Phragmites,
Right.
which they've done the prep cut out there, which you may not actually notice, but they've got that piece going.
excellent.
Do you want to take us through the RDA for the Cloverdale boardwalk, Amy?
Only if I think I can do it without cutting you off again. Let's see. So this is a piece of the trail at sort of the other end of the big fields, down what we kind of call the causeway. And there's just been so much trampling and, of course, wetness that it's what people are actually doing is they're walking out of the trail and into the wetland because the wetland is drier at this stage because it's not so compressed. So let me try this again and see if this works. Not working, is it?
There you
Assume
go.
you're
We can see your screen. There you go.
another aerial photograph. Okay, so the ADA trail we were just talking about is up here at the parking lot. And this piece of boardwalk is down here, parallel to Great Road, before it hits the causeway and goes around. So Jim O'Neill, who built a lot of our boardwalks for us, has done a design and laid it out. And this is in the budget to do this one also. And this was filed just as an RDA because it's not actually in the wetland, it's next to it.
and this, Amy, would just be constructing of a boardwalk consistent with the way that we've constructed them in the past.
Exactly. There's a picture of it in there, of the wet area. And I think Tim and I are having a race to see who can get one of these permits filed the fastest. So
Is that where that little stream kind of comes out?
it's after that. Oh, we don't have that. Okay. So yeah, if you're walking down parallel to Great Road, and you have to turn left to continue the trail, it'd be just before you go up a little ramp and turn left across that causeway. And it's, you know, as people do, the trail's getting wider and wider as people try to avoid the mud.
I'm personally comfortable with a negative determination there because we have lots of evidence or the ability to install these without creating a negative impact.
I missed how long it was, Amy.
Oh, shoot. I think about 70 feet.
Hmm.
Might be more, but I forget right now.
Any other comments on this?
I would agree, Chase, with a negative determination for this particular project.
Sounds like maybe you should form that into a motion.
Perhaps. I will make a motion that the board issue a -3 determination for the Cloverdale Boardwalk.
I'll second. Carl, second that. Motion's been made and seconded. Let's do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Oh, Maxwell, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Very good. Okay. The two other projects that we had, the Water Department water supply connection and 95 Taylor, have been continued to April 16th at the request of the applicant. So we're going to circle back to the administrative discussion. Amy, you want to take us through? It looks like we really just checked off the first box there.
Can you go
Yeah,
back to
I'm
that
afraid-
first one real quick? That it says also seasonal dock permit. We didn't really talk about that part. What is?
You're going to wrap that in with a fishing dock. Whatever docks they
Okay.
have out there that they have, we can just do them all at once.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
He's aware that there's a permit step coming for those, or we're working on that type of.
That what he's did with the select board is all he has to do. And I said no. So for a year or so, but
Right.
But we'll get there. We'll get him in line, and then it can just be extended every 3 years or something. So clean that up. So for the others, boy, I'm reluctant to try to share my screen again. The review of upcoming open space boardwalk projects. You've heard the two Cloverdales. What we had most wanted to do when I had a meeting with a bunch of the land stewards, myself and Tim, to decide what were priorities and what we can and can't do, this year or push off. And I have been trying to focus on doing, especially boardwalks on existing trails rather than necessarily open up new ones. Let's get what we have under control. So hopefully not on the 16th, but the meeting after that. Thank you very much. You'll see that the application for Hartwell, sort of down near the Causeway or Proctor Hill, and Long Lake Park near the entrance near Queen. And that Long Lake Park is actually going to be funded by the trust, and Mark Reinbacher made a donation, a matching grant donation there. So those were the original ones that I kind of proposed for this coming year. And then someone came forward with two other possibilities in the near term, one being opening up Hartwell Cemetery with a trail to the Hartwell parking lot right across the street there. And it there's a bunch of big fill out there and a little very intermittent stream that I'm sure dries up to nothing. So, dips down, then comes back up, and it just needs a little crossing to get across there. And the other one he wants to pursue is Aspen Road, to Aspen Road. And I'm not sure if any of you remember any of this. Maybe Carl does. Probably 10, more like 15 years ago, it actually went to the courts about whose property was whose on 2 Aspen Road between the house and the lake, because the paper road continued through, but they were sort of occupying it. So the judgment came down that for 10 years, which ended in 2020, the town had the right to have a trail sort of behind their house, which is where it is now, in the woods. And then after 2020, the town at any time can build a trail, I'll say in front of their house, along Long Lake, in which case we would have to abandon the one that's in the woods. So it's always sort of been on my hit list. I've just been reluctant because we do have a trail there already. So, and then you can see a whole long list of other ones. So I don't know how you want to decide on what trail, what boardwalks to do. There hasn't really been conflicts now because we just kind of been dealing with it ourselves. But I know if you wanted to mull this over, how you want to do it, I've told Jerry on neither of these. Hartwell Cemetery is cemetery property, so it's not conservation. Aspen Road, the easement is owned by the select board, and then you go right into Proudy Wood. So I assume we need to do a little work on that property also. So I had told him I'm willing to help him get the permits together, but I don't think the conservation budget should be paying the $300 or so it is to do the filing and the recording and the public notice and all that piece of it, and that right now we don't have the budget for it. So really, it's kind of a question of priorities, and if you wanted to be involved in the nitty-gritty of the priorities. And that also leads a little bit into the open space parcel prioritization thing also, about whether or not an open space committee or some other way of dealing with this should be considered.
Amy, where on Newtown Hill is this looking for?
Nothing on Newtown.
Well, I know the Williams property, I get that, but where? They put a boardwalk in one stretch rather, that was pretty wet, but.
Right, there's we're looking to relocate a trail that right now goes along Doleful Pond and is soaking wet. So we're looking to move that upstream a little bit, uphill a little bit, and to make it best, it would be good if we had a little boardwalk to connect it into some of the other stuff.
Okay, but you're not going to in any way disturb the equine trails that are there, right?
No, we just need to make sure that they stay on their trails, and that's part of the issue because the horses are really, as horses do, muck up the trail. So we now have almost parallel trails to do that.
Because I know there's one spot where they have to go through the water. Well, 2 spots, but one's really challenge. And if you put a boardwalk there, the horses can't. It gets too slippery.
Yeah. Well, they're not allowed on the boardwalk, although they've been on the.
They don't want to be on it. Trust me.
Well, they've broken the boardwalk. One of them. So we're gonna have to put signs up, make sure they understand their horses should not be on these boardwalks.
No, I ride. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And to take your horse on the boardwalk is asking for a lot of problems because it gets very slippery.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And Amy, is this the Hartwell parking lot repair? Is that done? It looked like it had been cleaned up pretty good because it got real bad over the winter.
No, it's pretty bad.
It's still bad. Okay, I drove by and it looked over and it looked like it had been repaired, but maybe not.
Yeah, if you actually go in a little bit, it's right in the middle of it. It's washed out.
And it's right smack in those. Yep, it was real bad when we went. for it there.
Yeah, and it actually goes down the trail a little bit. There's another piece of erosion, and Phil Pittarino, who lives right next door, has offered his services to help with that. But DPW is also about to do repairs on Hartwell and probably change the drainage. So I want to know where the water's going
Yeah.
after they do that before
Yep.
we start dumping gravel. It's just going to get washed out.
Okay.
So yeah, it's actually pretty bad.
Yeah. All right.
Is
I
there
can agree
no-
with that from what I saw.
Is there
So
no
it-
opportunity for the highway department to help with those repairs?
They're happy to. I'm hoping, which is why I kind of don't want to do it this year, because I'm already hitting aggregate up for some gravel this year. Is maybe next year I can get some gravel from them. Highway can spread it. Phil had said he'd be happy to put in a pipe under the parking lot. I was like, I don't think so. But if we can get a little settling basin up near the road, just a little stilling thing, so the water's not tearing through there, I think it'll take care of it.
Amy, your comment about that parking lot, in my mind, has a broader implication for prioritizing these things. I have zero problem prioritizing things higher if there are people proximal to it who want to invest the time, the energy, and the money into doing it. So, in my mind, the prioritization should sit with you, and it should sit with the trust, and frankly, I would rather you have the utmost flexibility to move things up or down a priority list with one qualifier. I would never want, we've got some folks on the trust in particular right now who really want to help build these things. If the issue is for want of $300 for filing fees, we're not doing something, we should solve that, right? But I don't think that's a problem currently. So my sense is, I don't want to be involved in prioritize. I don't know some of those properties as well as I know others. You know them really well. And the facts on the ground will change. If you find a group of neighbors who really wants a boardwalk at Long Lake at Queen, we should move that up to the top, right? If they're willing to put the time and effort in to help build it.
Right, which is kind of where we are right now. And I didn't want to, discourage Jerry from these other ones, but he's not at the bottom of the list, but we're kind of slammed trying to get the existing permits out or submitted to you guys for what has been volunteered, and we know Jim and Neil can work on. So I think I just want to make sure this got aired out, and obviously if they come up with the money for it, and or someone to build it, we can help along. But just in case Jerry Cavallo mentioned something to you guys that, why hasn't my permit been applied for yet? Well, we got a line.
Yep.
And Amy, I'd be happy to help you in terms of prioritization if you do need help. I would certainly advocate for Long Lake Park. It's kind of a muddy mess in a lot of sections, actually the sections that you've outlined here. So that would be kind of the top of my list personally.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, Tim and I were out there flagging the wetlands at the entrance near Queen, and I went almost over my ankles in one part of mud, and there's
Yeah.
and that's a scout had looked at that, but it's gonna be a tough build. So I think that needs Jim's expertise.
That's going to be a tough one for sure. Yeah. And in a section, particularly near the hardwood lot, it's just, after a good rainstorm, days later, oh my gosh, you go through there, good luck.
And I had heard that the parking lot, last time I drove in there, the parking lot looked okay, although I think it might have flooded this year. But this is a hard year to use as a benchmark.
Yeah, no, the parking lots, I drive by that every day. The parking lot seems okay.
Yeah, maybe it needs
underwater
another.
for a bit. But.
Yeah, maybe it needs another skim of gravel or something, but.
Same thing on Long Lake Park, though some parts of that are rideable trails and obviously stay on the trail, but the entrance in there, if the whole thing became boardwalk, would probably make that whole thing not usable for the animals.
Right.
So. This is really good though, you know, and I'm with Chase. I don't want to get in the middle of prioritizing, you know, if you have an opportunity to move something up because somebody's real ambitious or whatever, then why not?
Yep. Yeah, it just ends up meaning something gets bumped down. So I am hoping Tim and I can get a bunch more applications in for not the 16th, but the May, whatever that one is. We're going to have almost a month again in between meetings, for better or worse. So we can get our act together and get those moving.
Any chance you can like put all the Long Lake ones together? I mean, I know that's a large parcel, but
I've certainly done that before with Town Forest.
My 2 cents is whatever administratively streamlines it is what you should do. And if that's doing it piecemeal, great. And if it's doing it as one big, you know, Long Lake Park filing, good with that too.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. And I got to think which ones I can get away with a RDA versus a notice of intent also, which will make a bit of a difference.
Yep.
Okay. Good enough. The open space parcel prioritization evaluation. That's another thing. What do you want? What do you want to be involved in? Andrew had done, this is the checklist to at least some degree of how do you evaluate a parcel for purchase? How do you, look townwide and say, we think this parcel should be a priority, even though it might not be available for 20 years. What spurred me putting this back on the agenda was that SVT has a mapping system, and they are very eager actually to bring that to Littleton. But I wasn't sure who would be using this. If we are going to, the select board obviously is interested in some sort of prioritization type stuff. It does make things easy, but is that a separate committee? Is it just, me making it up? Andrew's got that nice checklist. It was in process. So I'm open to any ideas here. And particularly if SVT comes back in, there's no point in them meeting with me and the folks from the trust, because that's already happened. It's just a question of whether other people want to see this or not.
I think we should definitely have some part of the process, just because, we're the major proponent for preserving land and kind of submitting the grants and the applications to get the funding for a lot of these parcels. So we're kind of the deciding factor in a lot of cases as to whether or not, we move forward on a property. But we do hear a lot from the FinCom and other boards, why is it that you want this property as opposed to that property? And I think if we had something concrete that we could lean on, saying, we have a checklist and this property scored, X out of whatever total, and it's a property that we as a board really think deserves attention and preservation. I think it's definitely worth doing. In terms of the SVT tool, I know in Westford on the Conservation Trust, we looked at that as a prioritization. And it's certainly a good tool, but I'm not sure how good it would be for us. We could fine tune the list that was kind of worked on before, but I definitely think at a minimum, we should be involved in the process.
And I will admit, Andrew, I'm pretty much exactly where you are on the SVT mapping. I think it is useful to get you to a certain level, but then it's local knowledge. And, I've said this before, I can argue something is, we should buy it because it's isolated and the only thing there, we should buy it because it's connected. So tell me what the grant wants to hear.
Yeah, I guess that's always been my challenge with these things, is that it requires us to be careful to capture the paradoxes sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
And, when you go through this, a pocket park, little half-acre pocket park may be as important in some situations to 20 acres of wetland. So it's very hard to weigh them against each other. But I guess the question is, if I mean, I know the trust is a little bit gung ho on this. Is if we had SVT come in, probably to the library some evening, if you could make it, would anybody be interested in hearing about this? Put it that way.
I think it would be good to hear about it, but
I mean, I think what I'd probably, I'm struggling with this is, I maybe and just, invite you guys and FinCom and CPC and the select board and the trust and see who shows up and have a dialogue. I'm just not sure in what context and where it's going to go.
But I do think that dialogue could be really important, right? Because there are purely subjective decisions here, right? Like, do you value acquiring a bunch of really wet areas because they're ecologically significant, or do you value acquiring a bunch of upland areas because they're recreationally significant? There is no objective right or wrong answer to that.
Well, you acquire upland parcels also beyond just recreation because they support different types of wildlife than your wetland areas do. But are these open space parcels? Do the owners of these parcels, do they know that they're on this list?
so we wouldn't have a list of specific parcels, but it would be a kind of a criteria list of what we're looking for in a property. So we wouldn't say, hey, we really want to buy John Smith's property when it comes up. We would just have a list that if, say, John Smith's property did come up and we wanted to buy it, we could say, well, this scored a 90 on our list of criteria of things that we've identified as a community really matter in terms of open space preservation.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine because, it just when people see their properties showing up on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the SVT, the
Yeah, we
examples that you sent along, those made it look much more like, oh, these are the properties you want, not what Andrew.
Yeah, it's a map, so it might not have
Yeah.
parcel numbers on it, but
Right. You figure it out real quick.
I'm sorry, anybody who owns this property has got to be quite aware of.
Oh yeah, you're gonna know. Hey, that's my property. What are you doing?
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we'd want to avoid for sure. I mean, it puts us in a bad position to negotiate from the beginning anyway. So and we don't want to upset anybody in the process either.
I am of the opinion that we should ask someone to run point on this. And Andrew, at the risk of volunteering you for more things, my 2 cents is I'd rather see you sort of run point on it because you've put more thought into this than most people.
I'd be happy to help out.
Well, the OSRPIC committee the OSRP committee just dissolved itself, so he's got all sorts of free time.
So I'm free again.
So I do have an issue with looking for other open space parcels when we're potentially trying to sell, the orchard land, which is already protected. That still bugs me and rubs me the wrong way that we would spend more money buying other parcels when we already have one that we own. That's my editorial comment for tonight.
For what it's worth, Kyle, I'm with you on that in this respects of keeping the orchard, even if it's not able to be an active orchard. But, we're not talking to the right people for that discussion. So
I guess Andrew and I, we can work with you, Andrew, and see if we want to at least have a meeting with SVT to have a larger discussion with whoever's interested and seeing the best way of moving forward. And I'm guessing maybe under the auspices of the Concom, unless, because these discussions are I don't know, goals, action items in the open space and recreation plan. Also, so it could be under that committee, but I know you've had trouble getting that committee together just to discuss open space issues.
Yeah.
The record, yeah.
maybe keeping it under Concom for now until the select board, decides how to move forward with, an open space I can't even say it tonight, implementation
Yeah.
committee, might make sense.
I would argue even when the implementation committee is formed, it should still originate with the Conservation Commission.
Absolutely.
Rec is a huge piece of that, though. I mean, huge. I almost think it should be two different committees, one for conservation and one for rec, so they can meet separately, do their own thing, but also meet jointly when they need to.
Mhm.
Because that way they're not relying on you guys to make a quorum and vice versa.
And just because a parcel of open space is available that might work for recreation doesn't mean that it should go recreation.
I'd be fine with a joint committee too. I would not be comfortable seating, let's say the first draft of this elsewhere.
Mm.
And to a degree, we're going to be looking at very different parcels anyway. So I think the best parcel is one that makes everybody happy. So, maybe even a little bit of housing, a little bit, so it's good to have a combined interest in it.
Housing?
Just like property.
Like Brown's Woods.
Hmm.
Okay, we beat that to that. Yes.
Yes.
As long as you got what you needed from us.
I think so. Yes. I got Andrew. That's all I really needed.
Happy to help.
Popular guy, Andrew.
I wasn't sure if you had anything on the tree protection policy discussion. That's try to move that forward. What do you want to do on that, Kyle?
So looking for some outside input. So
Yeah. And I'm not sure what's happening with the Shade Trees Committee bylaw. I'm not sure where that's headed right now. So I'll just keep it on the agenda and we can take it up when we feel like taking it up. I'm afraid if I take it off the agenda, I'm going to forget about it.
yeah, no, it's fair.
Which is why you will continue to see it.
Don't
looked
take it
through-
off. The accountability is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely looked through Matt's draft and plucked a couple of items and pulled them into mine. But,
Oh, there you go. On the Lakeshore, the brochure is out, and Tim has given it, I believe, to the Clean Lakes Committee folks because they have representatives of all the lakes. Excuse me, so they can take it back to their folks. So the next piece of that would be if you want to have a dock policy to go with it. And the one I sent around is almost verbatim from what Stowe did, and actually somebody else also stole it from Stowe, so it's really not count. So it's fairly straightforward, but it does say that if it's an old dock, or that if someone comes in and wants to put on a new deck, but their house has a dock, and the dock is unpermitted, they got to clean up the issue with the dock. So obviously, if they want to come in and clean it up ahead of time, that's fine too. But as we look at houses along, Matawanaki or whatever, make note of what else is going on that property. And it can make it a condition that by the time they get the certificate of compliance for their shed or whatever they're doing, that they also need to start getting that dock into compliance.
Are these docks taken in and out every year? I'm left. Because I'm thinking if the dock's taken out, in order for them to put it in the following year, if it's not compliant, we shouldn't allow it.
Well, who's going to do that? I'm pretty sure they are almost all 100% seasonal. I think there's one on Long Lake that is, well, actually there's a couple abandoned ones on Long Lake that should have been seasonal, but I think they're just there all the time on town property. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the policy language, if you want to take some more time to read it and discuss it at the next meeting, which theoretically maybe not will actually include Healy Corner. again. Remember Healy Corner? Any of you remember Healy Corner?
Yeah, but I asked about that. So are we clean slate? We're starting fresh, a whole new filing, right? There's no chance that we have enough members on the board to continue where we left off.
Right. So I told the engineer Bruce Ringwald that they should talk to their attorneys and come up with a way to go forward. And I can check with town council. It's either going to be an entire new filing, or they just renotice. And the main difference there is that there's going to be a bigger filing fee if they have to refile. If they're just renoticing, put it in the paper again, notify all the abutters, then that's just the cost. So really, and I'm not sure how many changes they've made. So what I would
That's what I
probably
was asking.
recommend.
Do you have any inkling?
I do have a question though. That did they file well, they must have filed after the wetlands bylaw went into place, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've already got that. So I mean, maybe the thing to do is have them come in under the old one and have the discussion. What kind of changes are there, and how are you gonna move forward?
Okay, yeah. So you're not quite aware of what kind of changes they made, because I feel like that would drive my thinking.
I know there have been changes. What they are, I don't know, because
I think the only way that was going forward is if there were some significant changes. So that'll be interesting.
Then we'll get Julie back on the Concom.
Get
by
Julie
then,
and
so.
Anna back
Yeah.
out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Second.
And was very outspoken about it too. So
Yeah. All right, so I will bump tree protection and the dock policy, but I'm probably going to hold you to that because I need the dock policy if you're going to have one. Hopefully by the end of May. And the only other thing I had is one, which is not on the agenda, 161 Tehadawon, where she cut down all the trees, and then she's coming back latest by September with replanting. She wants to grind out some of the tree stumps, like one clump of tree stumps. I wasn't actually sure how y'all react to that, so I suggest she just send you a letter. It is not tree stumps that would be removed because of the septic system.
Grinding isn't necessarily a bad thing because it doesn't take it out. It just puts it down to ground level, or maybe a little below ground level, but the roots and everything from the stump are still there.
Well, it depends on how you're grinding. It can be some grading changes that go along with it all.
Hmm.
And generally, when the commission allows tree cutting, it's the stump remains. You're not messing around with the blow.
I guess my other concern here, Ed, is that if we were looking at an application and we approved that as part of an application, that would be one thing. I'm wary of giving someone who's essentially working under an enforcement order a leash to do the things that they want to do when they didn't follow the right process and just whack down a bunch of trees.
I agree completely, Chase.
Sure.
All right, so yeah, I told her.
There's also a trade-off here too, you know, the job isn't, or the intent isn't to punish them. I mean, we are, because they did the wrong thing and what have you, but grinding down a few stumps, as long as they stay in the ground, doesn't seem like something, it doesn't seem like the cliff to jump over. I don't know what the right phrase is I'm looking for, but the sword to fall on or whatever. At the same time, I fully agree that people that just go out and do stuff knowing they're supposed to do something different, which I assume you can't let that happen, or you're just gonna basically make yourself irrelevant.
And I think this probably also to a degree depends on where they're going to do the replanting. I think there's a red maple stump. A red maple stump is going to sprout like crazy, but if you grind it, it's not. So that kind of makes a difference too.
Yeah,
Sure.
I guess that's what I'm concerned about is like the moral hazard piece, right? If ultimately what they're doing is creating a better environment by grinding the stump, cool, good with it. If it's actually in service of doing what they wanted to do, but we wouldn't have otherwise approved it under an NOI, not okay. So location matters.
Sure, but it's also, if they don't grind them, there are ways for them to rot the stump out as well. I had a tree cut down, I didn't have the stump ground out, and 3 or 4 years later, the stump was gone.
Yeah, it turns out a little ammonium nitrate does a pretty good job.
Well, and I didn't even have to do that because it was just such that it happened. In my case, I was lucky it rotted, but yeah, you know, there are ways for people to force the rot to accelerate.
Yep.
So
I mean, my opinion here, Amy, is that she's welcome to ask, and I would be interested to understand how it dovetails with the replanting and the specific locations and so on and so forth.
That's sort of what I assumed. I told her I'm pretty sure that I can't just let her do this. So
Right.
she wants to ask, she can ask.
Yeah.
you don't get what you don't ask.
And I think that was all I had.
I have one other thing. Everyone should be aware that the Webster property is potentially still alive a little bit.
It doesn't do us any good if we still have the money problem.
It doesn't. The money problem would have to be resolved, and so the pathway is. I think you all understood that the applicant thought that the appraisal was very low. Littleton Conservation Trust has agreed to go forward with another appraisal, and we'll see what that looks like. If the appraisal comes in higher, that may open up additional CPC funds. It's to be determined whether or not that is at a number that the Websters would be willing to accept, but they have so far decided not to consummate their purchase and sale agreement. An attempt to see if there is a more agreeable price that the town could fund via CPC money.
Is this that the builder is having cold feet, or are the builders still prepared to go forward at the price that he offered, or they offered, I should say?
I will tell you what I've been told, just told, haven't seen any paper associated with it. The builder has held off because the Websters have expressed an interest in selling it to the town rather than to the builder, and the builder is willing to wait.
All right, because I mean, the Websters know where we're at. We were pretty clear and made every effort to find a workaround from it. So I would prefer not to revisit that if we're just going to go down the same road again.
The only road that we would go down is if the appraisal comes in at a price that they could accept, then we would, in very short order, have to see if CPC was still willing to fund it.
Sure.
See if we were still willing to support going forward on it. All of those things that happen. None of those have happened. So just because we're talking about using CPC funds, it should be understood that that itself isn't even guaranteed. But
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear at town meeting that the people were interested in it. They, like many, got stuck on the money.
In the Websters did come to the CPC meeting last night and reaffirm their interest in selling to the town. So like Chase had mentioned, it is a matter of just seeing where this new appraisal comes through. But I do know that the select board has put a placeholder article on the warrant. So as soon as the appraisal does come through, they'll be looking for either us or the select board to basically push this in an application to the CPC for approval. And like Chase mentioned, it's going to depend where the numbers come. If the numbers are really high again, last time on the seller's end and the appraisal comes up short, there's really not much we can do because CPC can only cover up to appraised cost.
Yeah.
And the advice that I've given the Websters is that they're going to have a very short amount of time to make a decision, and the number is going to be the number. And I've recommended to them to think about it in, $100,000 to $200,000 bands. We know we have a $600,000 appraisal. Would they be willing to go at 750? Would they be willing to go at 9? Would they be willing to go at 1? And they're going to have a day or two to sort this out on their end.
Yeah,
It
I'm
all
confused at
depends
all
on the
that.
new appraisal.
Right,
What was
but I thought this was already needed to be expedited on their end. I'm a little I think this is great that it's coming back to us, but I'm a little irked that they were pushing, say we need to do this tomorrow. and now all of a sudden they haven't. I don't know if I'm losing a little bit of confidence in their motive now, if this is where we're headed. But
It's very
yeah,
tough
if it's
that this came up. It took me 5 appraisers to find someone who could commit to doing this by May 1st. So we have a little bit of time before town meeting.
And by a little time, like a
they're
week.
crashing on it. Yeah, not even.
And not to sound cynical, but it's really feeling like the builder is not going forward and they're trying to find an out.
To be honest, the other advice that I've given the Websters is that they need to show up at a not town meeting, but at a public meeting, potentially with their builder. Like, here's who we would sell it to. Here's my motivation, you know. So we'll see. All of it goes through whether or not we get a number out of this, and I will tell you, I'm not optimistic. If I could be convinced that the appraisal we got was somewhat low. And I would tell you that if it came in at $900,000 as opposed to the 6 that we had, those in my mind are functionally the same number, in the sense that there's some squish in how an appraiser views it. We'll see if that's something they're willing to work on or work with.
What was the original number they came up with? 1.5.
30.
What was it?
Oh, they were the Websters were asking 1.6, and I think reduced that to 1.4.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so at 900,000, if in fact the new appraisal came in there, now you've got room to talk.
Yep.
You know, are you willing to come down to 9 in the interest of the town that you say you want to buy it?
Yep. So right now, no action items for us. I just wanted everyone to be aware that that has transpired in the last couple of weeks, and there is the possibility that we will need to schedule a fairly short notice meeting.
okay. I was going to ask that if we're looking at May 1st, you said that they need to get that done by, then we only have the one meeting in May as it is. Then okay.
Yeah, you would need to do a special either just before town meeting if it's kind of very clear where it's going to go, or something right after May 1st. And I will be out of the country, so you all have fun.
And I would add that CPC is planning to hold its next meeting on May 6th, the Monday before town meeting. So if we could meet maybe the week prior, if the appraisal is available, if we do get it May 1st, if we could do sometime that week, that would be ideal. Otherwise, I mean, we could meet potentially before the CPC does. I mean, that would be very, very short notice, very short turnaround. So yeah, ideally the week prior would be great.
I suggest let's see what the appraisal comes in at before we even start to try and rework schedules and so forth.
Oh yeah, I'm just in my head knowing that there could be a change up here and not be available on another night than a Tuesday. That's fine.
Sure. All right. Chase, thanks for the update.
Yep.
Got my hopes up and then dashed them again.
Well, maybe on the meeting on the 16th, you can tentatively set. When is May 1st? That's a Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. May 1st is a Wednesday. You're drifting right into town meeting because of the weekend. So
yeah,
but
even our normal.
Lyle's one who's going to have to respond immediately, I think.
He's going to have a number, and it's going to be a go or no go decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at that point, there's no a lot. We've already talked about all those things, right? So now it's the number, and if you're willing to do it, then you are. We're not going to go back and forth again.
Yeah, it's no selling to the town. Chase darn near convinced the town last time at the bigger number. So, it either is or it isn't.
Yep.
So.
Speaking of upcoming meetings, I won't be available on the 16th. But it looks like we'll have a meeting on the 16th, and then what's the plan after that, Amy? Because the 7th is town meeting.
Right, which is why we're not meeting again until May 16th or something. May 14th.
May 14th, yeah.
14th.
Unless you have a funny meeting in between. Chase, I can't remember. Were you one of the people who can vote on the well?
No.
No, I've recused myself from that.
That's right. That's right. Well, then fine.
make it
God
easy.
knows, Natural Heritage. Oh, and Natural Heritage does want more information on the spec pond, invasive species, aquatic management stuff. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Are we all set?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Andrew.
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell, aye. Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Chase.
Chase Carabay guy.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Myself, I. We're adjourned.
All right.
Good night.